A short amount of time.
Yeah. It was 5 years in the making.
Yeah, but that first day must have been, what have I been doing with my life?
Oh, man. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders.
Yeah, I can just imagine. I've never been, as you already know, and the listeners already know, I've never been really religious, so I can just imagine how that would feel.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I spent another 2 weeks there, relaxing on the beach, hanging out in the hotel room, hitting up bars and clubs, visiting all the major archaeological sites, and spending time on buses or on the beach, reflecting on what the hell am I going to do with my life?
Well, what'd you do with your life? I'm sure it's better. You're better off now than what you were.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I had, the one thing I was sure of is I still wanted to make the world a better place. And
Okay.
I figured the best way to do that would be politics. And so I looked at the routes people take to get into politics, and it's usually either through business or law. And I was so mentally exhausted. There was no way I could go back to school. Not a chance.
All right.
So
I'm guessing you went to politics then.
So I went into management.
Management. Okay.
And I worked as a manager for 6 years. Two places in the Puget Sound and then in Boise. I found life in Tacoma as first a deist, and then after about 6 months, actually accepting that I was an atheist. It was very foreign. It was very strange. Bars felt weird.
Well, yeah, if you surrounded yourself within religion, I imagine it probably did feel a little weird, but it wasn't so weird that you didn't keep coming back. And I'm assuming while you were in Tacoma, that's, and just so the listeners know, Dustin does have a partner. His name is Wesley. They're co-host on the Atheist Nomads. I'm assuming that's where you met Dustin.
No. None of the people that I am connected with now, with the atheist community there, I didn't know any of them while I was there. I did not get involved with the community. I didn't know there was an atheist community. Yeah,
unfortunately, and I'm assuming we're talking mid 2000s?
2007, 2000 to 2010 was when I was in the Puget Sound.
So Web 2.0 was just starting to kick off, where we could actually reach out to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I'm learning stuff now, aren't I?
Yeah, so, and one thing is, I didn't really feel like there was a need for an atheist community there, because in the Puget Sound, nobody's religious. Yeah, okay, there's a few, but they keep quiet and keep to themselves.
Yeah, but and I'm actually, for me, I never knew. I grew up in the South. I went to the military afterwards. I never knew there was an atheist community. The best thing I ever did was get on Facebook and actually start searching out people with the same ideologies that I have. So one of the best things in the world, and it's helped me so much.
Yeah, it was when I moved to Boise that I was going to be in a new city. I had not done a good job of making friends in the Puget Sound, and so I wanted to do better with that. And going to a place that was a lot more religious, I knew that I would need that support. So moved to Boise, and I got connected with several groups here in the local atheist community. Very quickly, I was made co-organizer of one of the groups. Shortly after that, I became the organizer of another one of the groups.
Funny how that happens, huh? I'm
now the executive director of the Treasure Valley Coalition of Reason.
All right, one more thing I'd like to be able to touch on before we shift gears and start talking about the Adventist faith itself, because that's just endlessly fascinating. I know because I follow you on Facebook, and we've had some back and forths. You are really into civil rights, gay marriage, now marriage, and you're also, you can actually marry people, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I do have a ordination from the Universal Life Church. I have officiated, I think, 7 weddings.
That's got to be just completely gratifying beyond belief to be able to do that.
I have yet to do a wedding for a same-sex couple, but that would be incredibly awesome.
I thought you had actually done that already. I apologize.
No, I was going to, but then they ended up just going to the courthouse.
Same, but I can't wait for that day when I imagine you're just going to be beaming just as brightly as the grooms or the brides are.
Uh-huh.
I can't wait for that, dude. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah. Oh, man. And the fight here in Idaho was, it went all the way to a full hearing of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. It was rejected by the Supreme Court. The state continued fighting. The final bill for the state is somewhere in the ballpark of $1.5 million.
Over something that wasn't not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible for it to not happen.
Yeah.
So ridiculous.
Are you tired of hearing the same old depressing news?
Exhausted with the state of the world and see no hope for its future?
Then why not escape reality with the Atheist Apocalypse podcast?
Come meet the people in the mysterious events of the Tri-Counties, where the despair is hilarious and the baseless hopelessness is scarce.
A fictional comedy audio story, unlike anything in the podcasting realm. Atheist Apocalypse will take you away from your daily woes while informing you about the secret plot to take over the planet.
Stupid. Don't tell the listeners of the show that. I'm not ready.
Sorry, I thought they should know.
You're an idiot. They need to listen to Atheist Apocalypse first. Otherwise, they'll be unprepared for the news.
If your podcast lineup needs some comedy, or even if it doesn't, add Atheist Apocalypse Podcast to your queue to enjoy our bi-weekly adventures with the wacky cast and crew. You can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, and YouTube, or find all the information you need at atheistapocalypse.com.
All right. Well, let's shift gears. And like I said, I want to speak a little bit about the Adventist faith itself. Now, there's some really fun stuff in this, listeners, just so you know. We're going to talk about cereal. We're going to talk about all kinds of fun. So give us a little rundown of where everything started.
Okay, so
now, I know that the lady you were talking about earlier wasn't the initial person, prophet, whatever, but she was influential, correct?
She was influential later on.
What's I can't remember what the lady's name is.
Ellen White. And so the basic story, you had the Second Great Awakening in New England and New York in the 1830s, and a deist by the name of William Miller.
The burned over district.
Yes. William Miller lived in upstate New York, and he was a deist, but he also started to believe that the outcome of a battle he was in the War of 1812 had to have been miraculous. And deism and miracles do not go well together. And at his parents' request, or at least his mom's request, he started attending church at the Family's Baptist Church with her. And when the pastor was gone, people would read sermons. And none of them were very good at reading them. And he thought he could do better. So he started becoming the regular to read these sermons. And eventually one of them converted him. And he started doing some study on his own and concluded that Christ would be coming back to earth to cleanse the sanctuary, believing the earth to be the sanctuary, on sometime in the Hebrew year that would correspond with 1843 and 1844. And he's eventually, it took him about 10 years.
Does that make it an apocalyptic?
Oh, yeah.
Does that make it an apocalyptic religion?
Oh, yes. Yes, very much so.
Okay.
Believing that sometime in 1843, 1844 would be the apocalypse. And so he started preaching it, got somewhere in the ballpark of 5,000 to 50,000 followers. They started a publication, Signs of the Times, which is still in print today, now run by the Adventist Church. And they reached the point where, using the more common Jewish calendar, that year was over and Christ had not returned. And so then they looked at another Jewish calendar, like, oh, there's another month. Christ will be coming any day now. And he didn't come. And so they were all quite disappointed. And they were, what a lot of Protestant groups, the ones that now are for the most part evangelicals, What they were doing at the time would be holding camp meetings. You'd have a lot of people in the frontier spread out long distances, unable to go to church, and so they'd all come together, camp, and preach. And at a camp meeting in August of 1844, Samuel S. Snow announced that it was going to be October 22, 1844, just 2 months down the road. That's when Christ would return.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the pivotal one, right?
Yes. And
okay.
Miller was having a hard time accepting a firm date, but he eventually accepted it. And they all were so convinced that Christ would return that day and most of them are farmers. They didn't harvest their crops. They didn't have their children start school that year.
Dedication, to say the least.
They closed their businesses. They were all in. They put everything in. And October 22 came. They were sitting on their east-facing porch or side of their house, waiting, someone up to hilltops. Some gathered together, and they waited. They were believing it was going to be a Jewish day, so it actually started sundown of October 21. But by the time the sun went down, October 22, they were completely devastated. It is known today in Adventist circles as the Great Disappointment. After that day, and actually most of them stayed up throughout the night crying. This. What was that?
If you were that much into it, I said, see, I was listening. I have been listening to you on your podcast. If you were that much into it, what would they, oh goodness, when it didn't happen, they haven't, like you said, they haven't done anything. They haven't harvested their down businesses. Pretty much this coming winter, destitute.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Oh, wow. All right, so now they're apparently and they know the end times aren't going to happen when they thought it was going to happen. Apparently enough of them still believe that the group carried on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, William Miller believed to the day he died that Christ would return in his lifetime. Most of these early Adventists tried to go back to their old churches. A lot of them weren't welcomed back in. A small number of them held on to the belief that Christ would soon return. And a group of them praying together, doing a Bible study, they were starting to think maybe the day was right, it was the event that was wrong. That something did happen October 22, but they had the interpretation wrong. And one of the men, I don't remember his name, he allegedly had a vision, and he refused to be God's prophet. And then 17-year-old Ellen Gould Harmon, who had been hit in the head with a rock by a classmate when she was 11, dropped out of school at 11, had a hard time seeing, was unable to read because of her poor eyesight, and was plagued with horrible headaches, had a vision that the day was right, the cleansing the sanctuary was right. They just had the wrong sanctuary. Christ entered the heavenly sanctuary to start doing the work of atonement, actually going through the books and deciding who was saved and who wasn't. And that we had entered probation.
Oh, that makes sense.
And this gets a little bit interesting with this concept of probation, because probation is not necessarily open-ended. There will be a day when probation closes, and then God will take his spirit away from the earth and let sin run its natural course. Because supposedly God's grace is the only thing keeping the earth from tearing itself apart, both natural disasters and conflicts between nations and people. And while God is going through judging, if he hasn't gotten to you yet, you can still be saved. But if he's already reviewed your case, you're done for. It's too late.
Such a nice guy there. Yeah.
Conceivably, under the Adventist model...
That is absolutely convoluted.
Conceivably, under the Adventist model, if I were judged now, I would not be among the saved. But if my judgment took place, say, when I was 20, I would be saved. And then
you're starting to make my head hurt again.
They had a couple more doctrinal changes. One of the early ones was rejecting the concept of an immortal soul and an eternal hell. And so what Adventists today believe is that...
That I can actually get behind.
Yeah. what Adventists believe,